Talking about the actual Hall of Fame speech itself, which, looking back in the history of acceptance speeches...
Oh, don't start that one. You don't even want to start that one. You don't want to start that one right there now. I know you don't want to start that one.
Yeah, that was great, man.
And went off, boy. His mom even was mad with him.
Then you are in Australia right now.
You're talking NBA basketball. You're talking great teams. You're talking great individual players.
Takes it off, and there's number 23, and of course Johnny goes nuts.
So I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it now.
I just tried to go out there and play my game.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Adam. I don't like anybody. I'm not a people person.
Strand, you made the pass, yes. Christian, can you catch the ball? Yes.
All the stars were aligned and all the muscles fired at the right time, and I was able to get off the ground and throw one down.
I was saving that as a surprise for you.
And now, introducing your host for In All Airness, Adam Ryan.
Welcome to episode 47. Thanks for joining me. My website, inallairness.com. Just add a / and the episode number to view show notes. In this episode, I'm excited to share a conversation that I recently had with my North Carolinian friend, Ross Franco, and his great mate, David Bridges. Now, David just happens to be a long time, as in 40 plus years, confidant and friend of Michael Jeffrey Jordan. This was a conversation first that then became a podcast episode. I recorded it and I wasn't sure if it would suit the show. However, within about 5 minutes of pressing record, I was convinced it would work really well as a podcast episode. So I hope that you will sense that too. We talk about a whole range of Jordan-related topics, and I guarantee that you'll enjoy some inside stories on MJ that you've never heard before. Before I get into our chat, I have an awesome listener contribution to share. This is from a great supporter of the show, Keith Mitchell, who resides in Cleveland, Ohio.
Good day, mate. This is K Mitch 975 checking in, Adam, to let you know podcast 46 with Rick Barry was an epic podcast to me. Rick Barry is such a character who never seems to speak well of himself and is in a charming way. I guess you can't play at that level without that type of bravado. Love his interviews, always have, especially how he goes over all of the great names of the NBA past. That was a great podcast. Make sure you continue to bring us these legends as I look forward to them. You're doing a great job and continued success again.
Thanks, Keith. It's wonderful that you're an ardent fan of the show and you took time out to let me know. It's been a little while since episode 46, which Keith just referred to there. Just for those wondering, we have moved house in the last 3 to 4 weeks, so I had to put the podcast on the back burner till we got sorted and moved house. Now everything's set up again. I'm right to go, so hopefully it'll return back to an approximate fortnightly schedule. Stay tuned towards the end of the episode. I have more great listener feedback to share with you. Now, on to the show.
Adam, can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you both. How's things?
Hey, how are you, man?
Good. How's it going?
Good, man. It's my good buddy David Bridges, man.
Hey, David, how are you?
I'm fine, sir. How you doing?
I'm going really well, thanks. Thanks for taking the time out to chat with me today and say good day. So it's good to be able to put a face to the name.
Okay. He's in Australia?
Yeah, he's in Australia.
That's sweet as all, Gus. How you like Australia?
Yeah, I love it. Love it.
Well, won't you come over here?
I should. I need to come over and visit you guys for sure. Ross has been a big supporter of the podcast ever since he came across it. Ross, when did you actually first find the podcast?
Since the first episode, so it's probably been about a year and a half.
Yeah, right. In the beginning, I can't actually even remember how you first found it. Did you find it through an iTunes search, or how did you even find the show?
I think you found me on Twitter or something. I don't know exactly how you found me. I think it was from a YouTube video or something. I made a comment maybe. I don't know.
I'm not sure, but it's such a small world, given the fact that of all the people who could possibly find a little Australian podcast talking about the Jordan era, that Ross stumbles upon it, and then he's good friends with you, David, and then you, of course, know Michael.
The Jordan era?
It's a Jordan era podcast.
Oh, yeah, and the Jordan. You a Jordan fan?
Oh, yeah.
He's well, you the man then.
I'm a huge Jordan fan.
Not as big as I am, though.
No, I guarantee it's not as big as you are.
I can guarantee you that one. But if you need to know something, you can ask me. I guarantee I can tell you.
That's definitely the case. I was trying to do a bit of research. All of a sudden, I got a phone call from our internet provider here in Australia. It was the worst possible timing. I've just spent the last hour on the phone talking about my internet connection, so it's been a bit of a pain. So sorry to hold you up on the call.
You ain't bothering nobody.
No problem, man.
My wife was supposed to come with me, but my son is getting ready to have my second grandchild.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you very much. And so I was sitting there this morning and I said, listen, this is not going to go down like this. Just because my wife's not coming, I'm going to see Ross. Me and Ross has been together since, I was about 17, 18 years old. Now, we've been together a long time.
Yeah, well, Ross submitted a story of sorts to my website where he sort of detailed some of the things that have happened in his past as well to do with, Jordan and the whole Jordan era and that sort of stuff. And he's mentioned yourself on numerous occasions and, yeah, he's links to yourself as well, which is good to hear.
Ross and me, man, let me tell you something. We used a ball. They swore we couldn't play, but don't listen to that now. We could play.
What position were you?
You know what? Me and him were just baseball players. We were just baseball players.
You're talking about MJ? Or?
That's how I met him. Yeah.
Yeah, MJ.
Yeah, I read that it was about sometime in the third grade. Would that be pretty close to when you would have first met? Apparently you moved from South Dakota to Wilmington. Is that quite accurate?
Louisiana to North Carolina, yeah. And that would be the third grade.
Yeah, okay, right. So from when you first arrived, was Jordan one of the first sort of friends that you made, or how did you first settle in when you moved into this new town?
My father left my mother, and she had 4 of us boys. When my dad went elsewhere, I wanted to play baseball. So M's dad used to come, my mom and her worked at GE together. And so his dad would come get me, even though his son played for Martin Marietta. I played for Parkers, but he would get me out there.
All right, so even from your very first few months, I guess, in the town, you started to be involved with the Jordan family in general. Would that be fair to say?
No. I lived over on Sunset. I lived in Sunset. It was over about a year before I got there. Me and Michael, we met up when we were 7. They had baseball tryouts for minor league, but neither one of us went for minor league. We went for little league, but 8 was the number. That's how we met up, and we've been rolling ever since.
Yeah, right. Okay, so I noticed earlier on you referred to him as M, and then you've obviously called him MJ, I guess, over the distance as well. We just accept this day and age that he's known as MJ, and it's a fair assumption to draw that someone would call him MJ at some stage, but are you one of the first that maybe dubbed him as MJ himself?
Absolutely, because you know what? When we grew up, when all of us come up, see, I'm DB.
Mm-hmm.
And he's MJ. And Todd Parker is TP. That's the way it was. It was just initials. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've got you.
Now, Ross was Ross, but that's Ross. That's my boy. Ross was Ross, and you didn't mistake who I was talking about when I said Ross. But when we come up, that's the way it was. We were initials, man. We didn't say Michael Jordan and like I go over the places and I say I'm here to see MJ and they turn around and they say, yeah, well, whatever. And you say, well, no, I'm serious. I'm trying to get to Michael Jordan. They say, well, yeah, well, so is the rest of this crowd. So you just step back with the rest of them. You know what I'm saying? We never went that route. You didn't ask for Michael Jordan. You asked for MJ.
I like it. You're talking about you were playing baseball from, maybe the age of 7 or thereabouts in third grade. How were you as a player yourself there, David?
Em and me played baseball. We rolled since we were 8 years old in Little League. We went to the World Series together when we was 12 years old in Lawrenceville, Georgia. The man said whoever hits a home run is going to win a steak dinner. M stood up in front of God and everybody and said, let me tell you something. Go ahead and get that steak dinner ready because I'm getting ready to knock this out the park. Now, we lost. We lost to Texas, 1-0 and 3-4. But on the 3-4, M did get that home run because I was on second base when he knocked that home run. But we still lost. But then he got the scholarship to Missouri. Yeah, Missouri. He got a scholarship because with the home run comes a scholarship, a summer camp. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, yeah.
It came a summer camp. So he went to Missouri for the summer. And that was nice. And that was good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
We rode on together, man. Even when we were in high school, I would pitch and he pitched. I play center, he'd pitch. I pitch, he'd play center. I turn around and I'd get him to give me thumbs up. I wouldn't even throw the dang on ball till my man gave me thumbs up.
I love it because I'm looking at a printout of an article at the moment, which I found before we chatted today, and it says, I'll just read out a sentence or two, and it pretty much says the same thing. It says, it's referring to yourself and MJ, the two alternated pitching and playing centre field on a Little League team that made the district playoffs and fell one game short of making the Little League World Series. And then you're quoted as saying, before every pitch, I'd look at Mike in centre and he'd give me the thumbs up, says Bridges. With him on the mound, I'd do the same. So it's fantastic to hear that from the source himself.
That's right. That's the way it was.
I love it. It's fantastic. So it's just really, it's incredible that through the wonders of the internet and being quite fortuitous that Ross happened to discover the podcast and I'm over here in Australia and all of a sudden there's a direct link to yourself as well. That this is even possible to even have a chat. So it's crazy and it's equal parts awesome as well. I'll soak it up for as long as it's on offer. So Ross, how about you talk about some of the times that you and David have got together and played ball over the years and just some of the things about your relationship, if you don't mind my asking.
Sure, no problem. Actually, I've known David for about 30 years. I think we met probably in the early 80s, probably 82, 83. I was about 18, 19 years old. And I was telling my kids actually earlier today that the first time I met David was on a basketball court. And he absolutely took me to school. I mean, he took me to the woodshed and he talked trash to me. I was telling my wife earlier, I said, that day I decided I'm either going to have a fight with this guy or we're going to be friends. And we ended up being friends. We've been friends for 30 years. So.
You know why we've been friends?
No, tell me.
Because that cat was an incredible leaper. That dude could jump out the gym. He could jump out the gym. I used to tell him all the time, I said, I'll tell you one thing right now. I'll take Ross, and I'll take any three on the sideline. It didn't make any difference. Just give me Ross. I'll take any three, and we'll roll. And we did. Now, we rolled for a long time.
And I know that in that story that you sent to me, Ross, that I ended up putting on my website, you mentioned how you had surgery at one stage. I think it was on your shoulder.
Yep.
You injured your shoulder and had some surgery, so that sort of put a halt to your game for a little while. But for the most part, you just loved playing on court as well and being involved in the game.
Yeah, that's right. I've played basketball since I was probably 12 years old. I never really played like high school or college, but with just intramural and pickup games, that sort of thing. And that's how I met David.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Greatest guy I ever met. Other than MJ now, both of them, but they all in the same category. Don't get me wrong, I don't care. MJ's on another level, but that's because them is them. But Ross is Ross.
I'm pleased that you've obviously developed and had such a strong friendship even over all these years. So they're the ones that endure and last the longest. So it's great to hear.
That's why I rode all the way up here to see him, because I'm telling you, it'd been like 18, 19 years.
Nah,
20,
15 maybe.
15?
Yeah.
15, I hadn't seen this cat in about 15 so years. Anyway, I come home one day, and he's in my yard. Ross said, I found you. And I said, you found me? I rode in there. I said, hey, Bo. My man said, you don't know who I am? I said, I know who you are, but you lucky I ain't shoot you because you're in my yard. But I was glad to see him. Let me tell you something. That was just incredible, and I don't want to lose that anymore.
No, and it seems that you've kept in more regular contact, obviously, since that time. And
that's right.
Ross speaks very favourably of you as well. So he was an advocate in trying to spread the word about my podcast as well. And I think he might have even sent you a couple of episodes of the show where I've interviewed a few players.
He did. You're right.
Have you had a chance to check out any of the previous episodes?
Yes, I have. I've listened to all three of them.
I think I sent him to Christian Laettner, Cliff Robinson,
and one more.
Sedell Threet, maybe?
Yeah, Sedell Threet.
Excellent. Sedell was a one-time teammate of Jordan, briefly in Chicago.
That's right.
Yeah, Christian, of course, was a member of the Dream Team in 1992 as well. David, so you're talking about Jordan when he's playing baseball as a youngster. How good was he? And do you think we all hear on the Come Fly With Me and all the interviews in the future that he did of how great a player he was, and he eventually had a chance to try out for the major leagues after he had his first retirement. But how far do you think he may have progressed in the game had he chosen to stay with baseball rather than basketball from the early age?
He only went to the baseball. Let me tell you, I was sitting in my house one day, and Bo Jackson called him on the telephone and said, listen, I'm doing a 2-sport deal. So Am decided he was going to do a 2-sport deal. So he calls me on the telephone. He says, you ain't going to believe what I'm holding in my hand. And I said, man, I can't even imagine what you're holding in your hand. He said, I'm holding a baseball bat, and I'm thinking about going to play baseball. And I said, it's been a lot of years, Bo. He said, but I got the opportunity. I got the man. The owner of the Bulls was the owner of the Kansas City Royals. He said, I can do this. I said, okay, all right, whatever. The next thing you know, his dad got killed, right? Okay, M retired from basketball then. And M only walked away. He only walked away. He could have won 8 championships had he stayed. The only reason why he walked away, because they did his dad wrong. That was wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
And Mike wanted out. So he says, I'm going to play baseball. And let me tell you, he gave 110%, but you see, he's on a cloud. He's up here in basketball. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But baseball-wise, he's down here. And just because your name is Michael Jordan, that doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? He goes over there. He goes with Birmingham Barons. I mean, they got a bus. That damn thing didn't even have air conditioning in it. So Mike bought him a bus. He bought him a bus. And all of a sudden now they got TVs, they got air conditioning, they got the whole 9 yards. But they still didn't accept Michael as a baseball player because he wasn't a baseball player. He was a basketball player. And he was a great, great basketball player. You know what I'm saying?
I do. Now, go ahead.
No, that's all right. You go ahead.
Well, first of all, when he was on his baseball hiatus where he's playing for the Barons, he played in like a Windy City Classic where he suited up for the Chicago White Sox versus Chicago Cubs.
That's right.
Like an exhibition. Yep. And then he went and played down in Birmingham for a season or so. And then the baseball strike ultimately led to him erring towards making that decision to come back to the NBA in March of 1995.
That's right.
Yeah. So how did you have like inside knowledge, I guess? At what stage did you think that Jordan actually may have been wanting to come back to the NBA, or was that sort of a surprise to you in the days it sort of first came to national awareness, or were you sort of privy to some information there?
There was no surprise. The only thing he had to do was get over his dad going out the way his dad went out. You took the wrong guy out, and his dad was his greatest. I mean, his dad would go to the ball game with sneakers on and blue jeans. He wasn't a man with a suit and tie on. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He was a real man. I remember way back when his dad restored that car for him before he went to Chapel Hill in high school. And he told Michael to get him an adjustable wrench. And Mike rolled in there with a crescent wrench. And he said, listen, I can tell you already, you better do something because mechanicing ain't going to be good for you at all. That's not, you don't even know what an adjustable wrench is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And his dad just rolled like that. And that's how his pops was. And we called him Pops because that man he wasn't only good to him, he was good to all of us. He was great to all of us guys, all of us that played ball out there, man. I mean, if your parents didn't come pick you up, he would carry you home, regardless.
Understatement of the century, I guess, but sounds like a great man, and obviously a terrible way for things to play themselves out. And I wasn't intending to bring up the entire topic, but I appreciate you at least touching on that as well. But thanks very much for sharing some of that.
They did a 30 for 30 on Michael, and them people, I told them, I said, listen, that's one thing you don't ask about that. You know what I'm saying? Don't ask about that, because that hits hard. And I'll be daggone. The third question was about his dad, and I didn't have no more for him, because you're talking about the wrong cat. You took the man out. That was a really, really, really great guy. Now, this guy sitting beside me is a really great guy too. You understand what I'm saying? That's right.
Yeah, I do. I've had many interactions with Ross over the last year or more, and I can tell just from the interactions that we've had and the back and forth via email, and he's sent through some photos here and there, and it's been great to converse with somebody from North Carolina, and then to be able to stumble upon this link that he has to yourself was just a magical opportunity that I couldn't pass up. So I appreciate the chance that we're having to chat right now.
There's no problem. It's no problem for my man Ross, and I'm glad that I have not met you, but I'm cool. If Ross is cool with you, I'm good with you.
That's good to hear. I appreciate it. So, Ross, how about yourself as far as in terms of Michael Jordan, prior to meeting David yourself? And I will include in the episode, if we turn this into an episode of the show, I'll include some links in the show notes to the article that you submitted to the website, which does detail some of this. But for those who haven't actually had a chance to read it, when do you recall the first time taking in the whole Michael Jordan phenomenon?
The first time I ever saw Michael Jordan in person, he was already at UNC or Carolina, as we say. But I saw David and Michael at the mall. I was out at the mall at Independence Mall with a friend of mine named John Norman, and I happened to see David, and here comes Michael Jordan walking up with David. And it was kind of surreal, because at that point he was already semi-famous, because he had already hit the shot as a freshman to win the championship. I think it might have been his sophomore year. It might have been his sophomore year when I saw him, but he was with David, and that's when I was just getting to know David for the first time too.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay, so talking of that 1982 game-winning shot against Georgetown in, I think it was in Louisiana?
New Orleans.
Yeah. Yep. So whereabouts were you, David, at that time? Were you there watching it, or were you watching via TV, or how did it work even back then with the TV coverage? Was it even on national TV?
I was in the back of the Kroger. I was doing processing crew in the back of Kroger, and we had a radio going, but I had a ticket to go to the game, but I did not get to go. They would not let me off, and I had to work, but we were right there. And we would listen to the whole thing. And then that Saturday, when they came home, I was right there with them the whole weekend.
Okay, so that's very interesting to hear. So on their return back home as national champions, and this is Jordan's only his freshman season with UNC, how was the fanfare back home, and what sort of things did the team, or even if you know MJ himself, what he got up to at that time for the next few days when they were just basking in the afterglow of being national champions?
Well, they were only on cloud 27 if you could catch them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were riding high at the time. I mean, they had accomplished what M wanted to accomplish, and M said that he would stay all 4 years, but he didn't. He only stayed 3. But his mother made him go back in the summer and finish his degree. She was the pusher. His mama was the pusher. His dad was he was a pusher too, don't get me wrong. But Pop was Pop.
Talking about some of the off-season, well, actually not even off-season, because during the season Jordan would obviously play golf a lot as well, but how far back does your golf game go, David? And Ross, are you ever taken part in any golf games against David yourself?
David and I have been to the driving range once or twice, and he can crush it straight down the middle about 300 yards, and I can't. So we've never actually played golf together, but he's played with MJ, numerous times, and he's close to a scratch golfer. He's a very good golfer, so.
All right. Well, I was going to ask there, how good of a golf game do you have, David? Because I've read some articles where Jordan, even I think most famously perhaps, or one of the most famous times, after the 1991 championship that the Bulls won, I think he chose not to go to the White House to celebrate and meet the president so he could actually come back home and play some golf. Is that true?
He did. Yes, sir. That's exactly right. We were down there playing at Landfall. They were in the White House. But Michael, that was all about Michael. That wasn't about nothing else.
Sure. Are there some other off-court instances and some interesting sort of stories or things that you think that some people may not be aware of that you would be able to perhaps touch on a little bit, David? Or I don't want to pry too much, so of course.
I'll tell you what, that's one of the finest cats you ever want to meet in your lifetime. Way back when we were at North Carolina together, I wasn't there. I was going to UNCW, but I went there. They did a Sports Illustrated issue. He's got an umbrella on his hat, over his head, the whole 9 yards anyway. I was there for that. And that was the Commodores. Who was that guy?
Lionel Richie.
Lionel Richie, all night long. That's the music that was being played at the time when we were in the room. And I turned around and I said, man, you getting ready to be gone, Bo. You just big time. And him said, let me tell you something. When I go, you'll be right there with me. And the greatest thing that I can ever say about him is it didn't matter where it was at. It didn't matter if it was in Orlando. It didn't matter if it was in Chicago. It didn't matter if it was in New York or Atlanta or whatever. I told him, I said, the only thing I want to do is I just want tickets. I just want tickets to come see you play. And let me tell you something, that cat had always made room for me, and he always got me tickets regardless. That's the greatest thing about MJ. That's the greatest thing. That's the greatest thing about MJ. I'm telling you.
That's fantastic. So his sense of loyalty, I guess, and get with the ties going back to, third or fourth grade when you first met.
Yeah.
It's great to hear that sort of stuff, that he continued that even at the extreme heights that he reached in popularity, which possibly have never really happened since. I mean, LeBron James, I guess, is adored by a lot of people these days, but he's equally reviled by some people as well, where I think MJ, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm confident to say that MJ was held in an esteem that possibly no other player in the history of team sports has ever been held.
Well, Dr. J was one of them.
Yeah, true.
Julius Erving was one of the greatest players ever. Matter of fact, he changed the NBA because it was the ABA back then.
Mm-hmm.
He changed it to the NBA. Great player. Maurice Cheeks. See, me and Michael always wanted to go. We were NC State fans. We weren't even Carolina fans. We were NC State fans. We were Monty Towell and David Thompson. Who put him in the Hall of Fame?
David Thompson.
Thank you very much. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And Michael told him, he said, you don't even know why you're here. On stage. Didn't he?
He did, actually. I was good. That's
yes,
interesting.
he did.
And you were
yes, he did.
And you were there at the enshrinement ceremony as well.
There.
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah.
And he said, you don't even know why you're here. And the reason why he was there was because, see, when we won the state and we went to the Little League World Series, see, we had to have foster parents when we stayed in Kings Mountain. The people that Michael stayed with knew David Thompson.
Yeah, right.
And so they said, well, listen, if you do, if you guys go on, and you do good, whatever, we'll get David Thompson to come over here and then you can meet him.
Oh, right.
And so we got knocked out by Texas in 2 games flat. We were gone. But anyway, the next summer, they turned around there and called Mr. J up and told him, he said, listen, David Thompson's going to be here, can you come up? And he took Michael up there, and he actually got to meet David Thompson when we were still in high school.
Oh, okay, fantastic. So that would have helped even more develop his keen interest, I guess, in following Thompson's career.
Yeah.
And he looked up to him, obviously, a lot, because I'm pretty sure in those photos you talked about for that Sports Illustrated shoot, or the photo shoot from earlier, I think he actually had a David Thompson poster hanging up on the wall behind him in the photo.
No, that's a Marcus.
Oh, Marcus Johnson, was it?
The guy from Milwaukee. And he's the one on the wall.
Oh, okay, so that was Marcus Johnson. I thought it was a David Thompson photo, so
No.
I must have been getting that mixed up. But that was a classic to see him on stage,
Yeah.
being there at the Hall of Fame. And talking about the actual Hall of Fame speech itself, which, looking back in the history of acceptance speeches...
Oh, don't start that one. You don't even want to start that one. You don't want to start that one right there now. I know you don't want to start that one.
Yeah, that was great, man.
M went off, boy. His mom even was mad with him.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to say, did you have any inkling that he was going to start sort of mentioning some of the things that happened throughout his career in the way that he did?
No way.
No.
M said what he said, and yeah, that's all I can tell you. He just said what he said, and I was damn proud of him.
It was certainly, he certainly left no stone unturned in terms of mentioning some of the things that happened throughout his career, and he had a few shots at Jeff Van Gundy. I think he referred to him as the short one, and all sorts of things. So there were definitely some interesting reactions from the crowd.
Yeah, it was.
He wasn't the only one he went after. Now I can tell you right now.
I'm sure that ticket for that actual event would have been quite hard to come by for those that were wanting to be there the same year that Jordan was inducted.
M helped me out every time. Like I said, M has been true from the very beginning. He said it when we were in Carolina. He said, if you want to go, you can go. And he's done it every time.
Fantastic. So, of the games that you've seen Jordan play, and I'm sure they've been almost too numerous to even recall, do you have a particular favourite game that he's ever been involved in that you were there in person and actually were able to then celebrate with him afterwards? Or what can you say is probably his best achievement on court that you've witnessed? Same goes for you as well, Ross, that you may have even just seen, whether it was either in person or if you watched it on TV as well. What if I had to ask you to choose one particular performance? It might even be too difficult a question to actually narrow it down to one, but what do either of you guys think?
Well, as far as the greatest in person, that's easy because I was in the Boston Garden in the overtime game against the Celtics on Easter Sunday.
When he just come back from his foot broke. Yeah.
The Celtics actually won that game, I believe.
Yeah, they did.
But I was there. A guy I worked with, he was a season ticket holder, and because it was Easter Sunday, he couldn't go. He had to be with his wife, so he sold me his tickets. Oh. So I was in Boston Garden on Easter Sunday in an overtime game against the Bulls. To me, that was the greatest thing.
And M said he could play all night.
Well, that wasn't a 63-point game, though.
Oh, that one?
No, that was just the Easter. That was not a playoff game.
I thought you were talking about the 63.
No.
Because, the Celtics played the Bulls in a couple of double overtime games. Yeah. There's the classic one in 1986, so I think David must be referring to.
You're right.
And then, Ross, you're talking about, would it have been 1991?
Yeah, because I was living in Massachusetts at the time, so it would have been around that time, yeah. And it was like either a double or triple overtime game, I think.
It was double OT because...
Yeah, I was there, man.
Exactly right.
How good is that?
I was there, man.
Exactly right.
I was at that game.
You got it.
Yeah, March 31st, 1991. So there you go.
That's the way to do your homework right there now. That's what I'm talking about.
I love it, David.
Yeah, it was strange because I was sitting in a season ticket holder's seats, and I was pulling for the Bulls, but everybody I was surrounded by was pulling for the Celtics, so I almost felt bad pulling for the Bulls. But everyone was very friendly to me, so it was nice,
Wonderful, because Jordan, I think actually it might have been at the end of the fourth quarter or the end of the first overtime, he hit a shot after the buzzer that would have won the game, but it was waved off. So I went to 2 OT. I think Jordan had 37 and Bird had 34. So crazy good game, but the Bulls just lost by maybe 3 points in double OT.
That was the thing, though. They constantly, it didn't matter how many points he made, they constantly lost.
But yeah,
I hated it. I had to take that crap for years. Then when they started winning them championships, it was over then, though. It was over then. You couldn't tell me nothing, though.
I love it.
Me and Ross was on the bandwagon, though.
Well, if anyone's going to be in charge of the bandwagon, I'm sure that, David, you must be at the very top of the list because you go back to only 7-8 years of age, and then Ross, you can't be too far behind either, being great friends with David for a number of those years as well. So you're right up there.
As I've said, I do not know Michael Jordan. I've met him 3 or 4 times through David, but I mean, he wouldn't know me from a hole in the wall. But it's been nice, getting to know David, and I have met MJ a few times, so it's been pretty cool. So
yeah, but it's been great knowing Ross.
Yeah, Dave's a good dude, man.
Ross is a great guy. Super nice cat, though.
Yep, I've had nothing but great dealings with him.
Yeah, Adam, I was just thinking that maybe David has had some unusual experiences, and he's met some nice people, and he's met some famous people just by being friends with Michael Jordan. So I thought that might be cool for him to tell you about that. I think I told you he met Evander Holyfield one time, and some other people. He's met Dr. J. He's met a lot of really, really famous people that.
Let me tell you, Dr. J told me one time we was over there. We were going into this place, and they said, "Do you want something to drink?" And Dr. J rolled up in there, and I think they were retiring Mike's number up in Chicago. And my man said, "Yeah, I'll take a beer, but I want it in a glass." And I was behind Julius Erving, and I said, "Damn, Doc, I hear you, cuz." He didn't want nobody to see him drinking no beer, you know what I'm saying? But he was drinking beer. And so I said, "I'll do the same. That's what I want. I want a beer in a glass." And I'm rolling with Julius Erving, and I'm out of here. And so they gave me a glass, because I would have just took it in a beer. Hey, I just drank the bottle. But Julius Erving said, "No, sir. That ain't going to happen right here." That's when I learned respect. That was a really, really nice.
I like it. So last year, Jordan celebrated his 50th birthday, and there was quite an extravagant party that was put on in his honour.
Yep.
And I know that you were there.
Yes, sir.
Do you mind just talking a little bit about that whole celebration and the number of personalities and different things that all sort of came together for that celebration for MJ's 50th?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Michael has always liked Charles Oakley.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always been a bond between them two. And Oakley is a really, really super nice guy. If you ever get to meet him, and you meet him on a one-on-one level, he's a really, he took care of me so many times, it's not even funny. So to be around him, Chris Paul, Michael, and everybody just come together for Michael's 50th birthday. Who was there? The man at NBA.
David Stern?
Stern. Yeah, David Stern was there. He sat back, didn't say a word, did nothing. Him and his wife, they were sitting there, and we were sitting right there, and they seated me. They didn't seat me at Michael's table. They seated me at the table right behind Michael, so I could slap him right in the back of the head. You know what I'm saying? If he acted a fool.
Yeah.
But they had me sitting right there. It was big. Last minute notice. I almost didn't get to go. I had the tickets, but I almost didn't get to go. And then a friend of mine jumped in there and he said, "Hey, man, let's go." And so we rolled down there, and then we didn't have no hotel room. I had worked 14 hours. Took a jet-eye out of here. We got down there and didn't have no hotel. So 2 hours before we were supposed to be at this daggone party, we finally got a hotel. I rolled in there, man, and I was tired like you ain't never seen. So I disappeared. I disappeared for 2 hours. And the man said, "Where's Dave at?" They said, "Don't worry about Dave. Dave's going to be fine." Dave was over there asleep on the steps. I was sleeping on the steps. And you know what? I woke up? Jay-Z and Beyonce come in the door. And that's when the door closed. That's what woke me up. And then I got back up and went back out there.
And you're re-energized, ready to go.
Yeah, well, I guess that's what it took.
Had a bit of shut-eye.
But I know I was sleeping good for a while.
Great to hear. Now, I think I read in an article somewhere in the past that in between Games 5 and Game 6 of the NBA Finals, maybe in 1998, I think it was 1998, Jordan's last game where he went out on a massive high by beating the Jazz with his last-second jumper pretty much.
Yeah.
Were you involved in a golf game around that time as well, or how regularly did Jordan hit the links during the actual NBA Finals itself in between games? Do you mind talking about that for a moment?
I wasn't there, but I can tell you what it did happen. There is a poster There's a poster out right now. And the only reason why the poster exists is because him and Brian, he pushed off.
Brian Russell.
Brian Russell.
Russell, yeah, he pushed off Brian Russell. Now, Brian Russell says he pushed him off. And then M says he didn't push him off. You know what I'm saying? But he clearly pushed him off. I don't care who. I'm telling you, M pushed that cat off. But there was a kid. When Mike shot that, there was a kid that stood up in front of everybody and threw his hands up just like that right there. And M's got a poster of that right now.
All right.
And it's a limited edition. I guarantee you, that little boy, he made sure that little boy got that first poster, and it was signed by Michael.
Oh, fantastic. So, yeah, it's great to hear these sort of stories that next to nobody would really know all that much about. So I appreciate you sharing them for sure. Do you have any other sort of instances where Jordan people are asking for his time and asking to chat with him and interview him and get him onto this show and that show? But do you have any sort of other instances that stand out over his career where he went above and beyond to maybe do something for a fan or for a charity or something that might not have actually been publicised all that much, that would just sort of show the type of person that he was off the court?
I don't have one on Michael, but I have one on his dad.
Yeah, sure. If you don't mind sharing. I mean, I don't want to be too personal by asking, but if you're happy to share, I'd more than be happy to hear it.
I got one on his dad. We were in Greensboro in the NCAA. Patrick Ewing, Michael and them had just waltzed Patrick Ewing off the court. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Anyway, a little boy was standing there with me and Pops. He had the headphones on, you know what I'm saying, and he was just rolling out of the locker room. And the little boy grabbed Patrick Ewing by the leg and pulled on his pants, you know, because all he wanted was an autograph, and his dad was right beside him. And he took the kid and just reached his hand down there and pushed his head away, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it crushed the little boy. It crushed him. So I saw it. So I grabbed Pops. And I said, Pops, look, man, that guy just shoved that little boy right there. That's why the boy's crying. He said, I tell you what, don't worry about this. I got this. So he grabbed the little boy and carried him into the North Carolina locker room. And he got to meet Michael. That little boy come back out of that thing, buddy. And let me tell you something. His dad was like, oh, who is that man right there? I said, don't you worry about that man. That man right there, that's the man. That's Mr. J. He said, Mr. Who? I said, that's Mr. Jordan. That's Michael's daddy. He's taking your son, and he rode him right into that locker room, and he got to meet Michael. That boy come out with smiles on his face. You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah. I guess he had a new favourite player for the rest of his life after that
moment.
I'm
You know
sure.
what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't Georgetown either.
No, that's right. It would have been Carolina Blue. I love it.
I don't know if he was a Carolina fan after that, but I know he wasn't a Georgetown fan.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I can imagine that being the case. That's very good. So,
yeah, David.
Go ahead, Ross.
I want to hear the story about how he met Evander Holyfield and how he shared his taxi with him.
Shoot.
So tell him that story. I think it was at a golf tournament or something.
He don't want to hear that.
I just want to tell him the story, man.
He don't want to hear that.
Yeah, he does. Come on.
I'm sure there'll be a number of people that would like to hear that. David, if you want to share it.
Man, listen.
Just tell him how
it was just a freak thing. I was at Michael's golf tournament in Greenville, North Carolina, and it started to rain. We were all on a practice round. Anyway, we went up underneath this tent, and there was like 30, 40 people. But Michael had cars waiting for you, and they'd carry you back to the hotel. So I was next in line. And this guy walks up, and he says, hey, man, I'm with Evander Holyfield, rah, rah, rah. And Evander's ready to leave. And the guy says, well, so is the rest of these people in this tent. And I said, oh, man. So I said, damn, that's Evander Holyfield. You know what I mean? I said, okay. So I had the next car. So I told the guy, I said, listen, you really with Evander Holyfield? He said, oh, yeah. I said, okay, I'm with Michael Jordan. And that's my car coming up next. You tell him he can take my car and I'll get the next car. So he rolled over there to Vanny Holyfield. Vanny told him, he said, no, the only way we'll take that car is if he comes with us. So he come back and he said, no. Vanny said, the only way he'll take that car is if you come with us. I said, oh yeah, I'll roll with you if that's what you want to do. We got in there, and anyway, I wound up in the back seat with him. And I said, Vanny, I said, I think it's amazing. Because, see, I thought he was like 6'5" and 240 pounds. The man's 5'9" and some change. And I said, Lord have mercy. How in the world do you go up in that ring and fight them boys like you fight them? He said, Philippians 4:13. Never forget it. Says, Philippians 4:13 says you can do all what you believe within, through God. I said, damn, I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that. So I said, okay, guys, we in there, we rolling. I said, listen, come up to the hospitality room with me. Man said, no, Vanny wants a bath or whatever. I said, well, whatever. Anyway, about 10 minutes later, the man knocks on my door. Now, Vanny don't sign no autographs. He'll take your picture with you, but he don't sign autographs. He sent me a 24-karat gold autograph, Philippians 4:13 picture with him and the belt on it.
Oh, wow.
It went for $5,000 that night at Mike's golf tournament. I got one at my house.
Unbelievable. Hey, that's fantastic, isn't it?
That's awesome.
Yeah, because I guess at the time as well, when this is all happening, there weren't too many people that would have probably rivaled Jordan's popularity around the United States, if not around the world, I guess, and Evander Holyfield's right up there as well.
The man said that was one of the nicest things that anyone had ever done for him, period. And that's why they sent me that picture autographed.
Fantastic. So just along the same lines of the autographed sort of memorabilia and things, do you mind if I just briefly ask about some of the items that you may have been able to acquire through Michael Jordan throughout his time in the NBA, like some of your more prized possessions, if you're able to elaborate a little bit?
Okay. How about one of the first pair of Air Jordans ever made out and they don't have wings on them?
I think Ross might have actually provided a photo to do with something along those lines.
Yeah. How about a couple championship rings? I got about 4 or 5 of those. And then I got the shoes that Phil Knight's been trying to buy from me. They're Adidas. Mike played in the Pan Am Games.
Yes.
Patent leather. He's been trying to buy them from me. Hey, he wants to make them Adidas disappear, but I got them. They're not going anywhere. Yeah.
Is that when he went over to, I think, like Venezuela or somewhere and played in the Pan Am?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
1983, I think it was, something along those lines.
I got 2 signed jerseys, one of them to my son. My son is named David Michael because of me and Michael. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
He would never give me a jersey. Michael would never give me a jersey, but he gave my son one and autographed it. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, some fantastic memorabilia in the collection, I'm sure. Who were some of the other players from within the Bulls team at that time, even during the 80s and then into the 90s? Because there was a revolving cast of some of the role players perhaps that sort of went through the team. Was there some other guys? You mentioned Charles Oakley, who's obviously one of MJ's best friends, and you're obviously friends with Oak.
Yes.
Who are some of the other guys that were close friends with Jordan and you maybe got to see the other side of off the court and meet them and be friends with them over that journey as well?
Horace Grant, Scottie Pippen, Steve Kerr, but the best one was John Paxson.
Okay, sure.
Really super guy.
Okay, and him and MJ go back almost to the 86 season and stuck together until 1993.
There you go.
Yeah, excellent stuff. Great to hear these things. Just another thing, if you don't mind me just picking your brain a bit more, David.
You fine.
And Ross, I hope you don't mind me just commandeering the conversation here.
We're just hanging out, having a good time, man.
We're fine.
Take your time.
Do you ever think that, people are talking about now the fact that LeBron James is closing in on perhaps having a legacy which might rival Jordan in the future? Do you think that anybody has a chance to perhaps rival what Jordan has done for the game, both on and off the court?
Oh, yeah. You know, you can't take nothing away from the game. You can't take nothing away from the game, and let me tell you something. Julius Erving was one of the greatest players there was, period. Then come the era of Michael Jordan. Okay, then come the era of my man out there in Lakers.
Kobe.
Okay, then come Kobe. And now you got LeBron James. Now, I'm a firm believer that says I'm just like Mike. If you'd have come out in Mike's era, you wouldn't have had no error. Because Mike have ate you up. He'd have ate Kobe up. He'd have ate LeBron. Now, LeBron's is he's taller. He's taller than Kobe. And he's a great player. And Kobe was a great player. And Julius Erving was a great player. And I'm not taking nothing away, but I'm biased. And Michael is Michael. And you know what? I grew up with that cat. And he's one of the greatest NBA players there is. And I ain't talking about one of the top 50 either. I'm talking about he is in the top 5, period, because you gotta go back to 11 championships.
Bill Russell?
With Boston. Bill Russell, one of the greatest players there was. Elgin Baylor, Oscar Robertson. I mean, Dr. J.
Kareem.
Kareem Abdul. Now, that's 5 right there, but you got to put my man in there somewhere.
Right.
My man's got to squeeze. One of them got to go. Oscar Robertson's got to go. He's got to go because Michael's got to be in the top 5. Now, I mean, I'm just saying. But I'm not saying them cats are great. Don't get me wrong. Kevin Durant's a great player. There's a lot of great players. There's a time and there's an era. M was in his era, and these cats are in theirs.
Paul George, he's the latest.
Well, Shaq was a great player.
Yeah, he's got a great game.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's an era. You can't say who was the greatest player. You can't say who was the greatest player because there's been a lot of great players.
Yeah.
You got to sit back and say, hey, man, you got to respect them all. That's what makes the NBA the NBA.
You're talking about being biased because you and MJ go back, 30 years or more.
That's right. Over 40 years.
40 years. I'm probably the most biased Michael Jordan supporter in all of Australia, without doubt. So I can certainly concur with what you're saying there.
I would be with you. If you said Michael was the greatest basketball player of all time, I'd probably jump right in there with you. But if we had to be honest about it,
yeah,
he was one of the best.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because Julius Erving was a monster player, and
LeBron is too. Yeah.
Well, and LeBron is too, and Kobe was, and that. I mean, Kobe. There's a lot of them. There's just a lot of them.
Yeah.
But in Mike's era, I seen him score 40, 50 some points and go home and lose every night, and that dude he was beside himself.
Well, in his first 7 seasons, he was getting better and better each year. The Bulls slowly put some pieces around him, and then that's when Horace Grant and Scottie Pippen started to come in 87, 88. Charles Oakley, unfortunately, was sent to the Knicks, so they then built up their first championship team, which became the first three-peat. So
that's right.
They had the pieces around Jordan, and I guess we know how insane of a competitor he is, but no one probably knows that better than you, seeing him up close and interacting with him over those early years in his career where he was so great individually, but the team hadn't quite got yet to the level it needed to be.
That's right. Yeah, you go out there and score 40, you score 50, but you got big old Orlando Woolridge, and you're not winning. I mean, you got draft picks, but ain't nobody producing. And then you go get like Bill Cartwright, an old guy from Philadelphia. He should have been on his way out. But you win 3 championships with him? Somebody was smart in this ball game. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where they got to the stage where they get together all the necessary role players to fill their positions, and they all then became the team. Jordan embraced the team concept and then led them, obviously, to the ultimate reward with 2 separate three-peats in the space of 8 years. And as you said, it could have been 8 straight had he not actually retired and took up baseball for that period of time as well. So an incredible, incredible legacy.
It was an incredible legacy. I'm telling you. That was one of the greatest of all times.
Yeah, undoubtedly. Just one more maybe quick question before we bring a close to this, because I could probably talk for 5 more hours. But in terms of Jordan's role now as owner of the Bobcats, how do you think he's developing the team? They're going to be reverting back to be called the Hornets as of next season. How do you think he is behind the scenes with his competitiveness? Where do you think he hopes that the team, obviously he wants to get to playoffs and challenge to be a contender for the title, but what do you make of his personnel moves and the development of that team as they go forward with the goal of trying to be a competitor for the title?
Well, I'll tell you what, he's got him on the right track right this minute. For not having nobody, he had the boy from New Orleans, Chambers. Gosh, they've had so many great players, and then none of them. Raymond Felton, they've had a ton of great players, and none of them has ever stepped up and did anything. So now he has like nobody. He's going to make the playoffs. Right now, I think he's sitting in 7th seed. But I'm going to tell you, just like the man told me, Michael is a great recruiter, but he's a sorry coach.
Do you mind just elaborating a bit more on that?
See, Michael wants you to play Michael. You have to be committed. Michael wants to take talent and make talent. You know what I mean? And he don't mind if he goes 3, 4, 5 years to make talent work. That's no problem.
You guys are both obviously in North Carolina, so what's the feeling around the state in terms of the Bobcats reverting back to the Hornets name? What do you guys think, given they go back to the late 80s when the franchise first came into existence?
For me personally, it just feels right. Charlotte has always been the Hornets, and just the Bobcats never felt right to me. So I'm glad they're going back, and hopefully they'll find some success there.
Yeah, Ross, did you attend many Hornets games over the years when they were back first known as the Charlotte Hornets? I'm like talking back into the early 90s and things. How much of a chance did you have to go and play visit games in Charlotte?
Not a whole lot. I've maybe seen 5 or 6 Hornets games over the whole span of time they were the Hornets.
Well, it's been awesome having a chance to chat to you guys. Thanks again, David, for making yourself available, and Ross for helping set up the conversation too. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Always a pleasure, Adam. Anytime, man.
I just can't thank you enough for setting it up, and it's kind of surreal to be able to chat with you both there in North Carolina, and particularly with the links that you guys have to the guy who my entire podcast is actually built around, being Michael Jordan. So it's pretty cool to even have this opportunity thanks to the wonders of the internet. So thanks again. I do appreciate it.
You're very, very welcome. And thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Adam.
It's been a real pleasure. Thanks again, Ross and David. That was a very enjoyable chat. I encourage you to interact with the show. You can suggest topics for future episodes or guests that you'd like to hear conversations with. I welcome voicemail comments or questions on my website or Facebook page. Since last episode, more great feedback has been received. Thanks to Mark Kumanale for an excellent iTunes Twitter feedback there. For an excellent iTunes review that was added recently to the USA store. Mark says, "This podcast is exactly what I'm looking for. Awesome sports history show with great interviews. Adam and guests seem to bring an endless amount of depth to their topics and deliver an enthusiasm that can't be faked. I'm so glad I found this show." Now, Mark, that's great feedback. Thanks very much for that. I should make mention as well, thanks to those that have sent me some email feedback. Most recently, and please forgive my pronunciation on most of these names, Adam Beechin, who I believe is in Phoenix, Arizona. Milarad, I won't even try and pronounce your surname, I'm afraid, who is in Melbourne, or at least Australia. And also Tim Coyne of San Francisco. There might be a few others that I've accidentally omitted, and if that is you, please drop me a line and let me know. I've enjoyed email exchanges with all of you, conversing about our respective love of NBA history. In a nutshell, if you're a hoophead like me, please do reach out via any method that you prefer, and I'd love to chat with you. Worldwide on iTunes, the show currently has 36 reviews and 41 5-star ratings. And on Stitcher, there are 2 reviews and 2 5-star ratings. I've also noticed a quick rise in the number of Stitcher playlists that the show now appears in, which is great. since I had to reset my previous Stitcher stats. It's good to see that those numbers are now again on the increase. Thanks for your great support of my podcast. If you add a review, I'd like to mention your name in a future episode. Your ratings and reviews are like, and I'll put a special mention here, Ross Franco No Look Pass, the ultimate assist. Thanks again, Ross, for setting up this conversation for episode 47. The reviews help me to reach a wider podcast audience. It gives you, the listener, more opportunity to hear conversations with great guests. You can subscribe to my show in various ways in allairness.com/iTunes. Alternatively, you can add it to your Stitcher playlist in allairness.com/Stitcher. My RSS feed appears in the right-hand sidebar of my website. If you're on a tablet or smartphone, scroll down to the bottom of the page and you should see those details as well. You can subscribe to the show on Player FM and other podcatchers. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show and share my web address with your friends and colleagues in allairness.com. Check out the podcast archive for plenty more episodes with high-profile guests. Follow me on Twitter at @inallairness. Please add your like to the show's social hub, facebook.com/inallairness. Join me next time for another edition of the show.